Welcome again, everyone, to another episode of the supplemental podcast of The Outsider. You recently received a piece dealing with the governor versus the lieutenant governor of Texas. And this is just going to be a short explainer as to why Lieutenant Governor Patrick outmaneuvered Governor Abbott in the special sessions of the Texas legislature. And so, as we go into this, let's kind of shed some light as to why the lieutenant governor is as powerful as he is. Now, both the governor and the lieutenant governor are institutionally weak positions. And this is because, not to get too down into the weeds now, but this is because of the 1876 Texas Constitution, under which we are, is a reactionary document to the previous Constitution that was done in 1869. Under that Constitution, where we had Governor E.J. Davis, the power was centralized in the governor's position. And we had annual legislative sessions, and the governor was able to really do a lot of appointments. Well, once E.J. Davis is kind of forced out of office and the Constitutional Convention of 1875 begins and ends, what we see is our current Constitution of 1876. And really, if we want to think about it in this way, it's not far off to say that the framers of this Constitution looked at the previous Constitution and said, we don't want to do that. So it was as if they started with a where we don't want to start type of a primer. And that's where they went. So here we are looking at the Texas Constitution of 1876, and the executive branch is plural. So there's more than one. There's 9 elected officials inside the Texas executive branch. There's the governor, there's the lieutenant governor, there's the attorney general, there's the controller, there's the ag commissioner, there's the lands commissioner, and then there's 3 railroad commissioners. There's only one position inside the executive branch that's appointed, and that's the Secretary of State. Here we also have the legislature, which meets every other year. It meets in odd-numbered years for a very short amount of time, for roughly about 5 months. So in this regard, the powers of the governor and the lieutenant governor are informal. That's where they have really encapsulated their place in Texas politics. That's where they have really made their mark. And really, Governor Rick Perry was really good at using his informal powers. And if we're even go further on that, to build on that, you can point to Governor Abbott has done just the same, if not more, than Perry has on his informal powers. Well, let's be clear about this. The powers of the lieutenant governor are, again, institutionally weak, but he gets his abilities from the senators and from the Texas Senate, because where he is the president of the Texas Senate. And so he is incredibly powerful because the senators essentially give him a lot of power to do things. It's his job, according to them, that he will set the agenda for the Texas Senate. He gets to appoint members to their committee posts, and he gets to assign committee chairs. He gets to create committees. All right. He gets to assign bills to their appropriate committees. He gets to decide who gets recognized on the Senate floor. I mean, the power of recognition is quite amazing. So if a senator is standing there with his or her microphone, awaiting to be called upon by the governor to engage in a floor debate or any type of conversation, if the lieutenant governor doesn't recognize this person, just says, you're not there, and just moves on, that senator can't talk. So there's a lot of power here. And the lieutenant governor has it to where no bill will come to the Senate floor unless it has the Republican majority support, or really his support. And the lieutenant governor has an iron-fisted control over the Texas Senate. All right. So when we think about these powers and we compare and contrast them between each other, I mean, the governor's informal powers has a lot to do with trying his best to influence, and that's what he tries to do. He can't walk into or he can't go into the Texas Senate or inside the Texas House and say, do this bill, do that bill, and let that be the end of it. He has no capabilities of doing such an act. The best thing he can do is influence, to try to get lawmakers on his side in both chambers. Well, in this regard, he has a hands-off approach to the lawmaking process. The lieutenant governor has a hands-on approach to the lawmaking process. It's all hands-on. He gets to decide what's going to be discussed and what isn't discussed. This is quite the big deal. All right. And he's statewide elected. And so he feels that his agenda is a majority of Texas voters. And to be fair, that's not a bad analysis. But the governor has the same kind of political capital here. All right. So when we think about these two, we think of them often on the same page. But as we got towards the end of the regular session, the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Governor Greg Abbott were not on the same page when it came to property taxes. Governor Abbott turned out to be on the side of House Speaker Dade Phelan when it came to property taxes, wanting to do what's called compression. Now, not to make your eyes roll in the back of your head, is to make you feel as bored as possible, but a quick synopsis of this means compression means that the state government will put a lot of money into public education. Therefore, your local school boards will not raise your property taxes more than what they have in the past. So this is often referred to as buying down your property tax or compressing your property tax. The biggest portion of anyone's property tax is your local school board, is your local school. And so they do this through what's called maintenance and operations. It's for short, that's called M&O. And so if the state is able to give more money to public education, that will compress, that will shorten their need for property taxes, and then the local ISDs will lower their rate. Therefore, you get a lower property tax. And that's what Governor Abbott wanted to do, because that's what that's what House Speaker Phelan wanted to do. We also need to understand that Speaker Phelan wanted to address appraisals and how the appraisal process works and how that needs to be addressed, because there's long been conversation about appraisal creep. So he comes out on the side of that, he being Governor Abbott. Dan Patrick's over here saying, no, hold on a second. We need to do homestead exemptions. And when the session started, you had Lieutenant Governor Patrick saying, we need this at $75,000. Let the homestead exemption go from $40,000 to $75,000. But when nothing was done at the end of the regular session when it came to property taxes, so we had this huge promise of a property tax relief, not reform, but relief. So this idea that the state is going to lower our property taxes, and we will feel that in some sort of a relief measure. Well, what didn't happen at the end of the regular session was exactly that. Neither the House nor the Senate could come up with some sort of an agreement. So as soon as the regular session ended, Governor Abbott, in his capabilities in this office, said, don't go anywhere, lawmakers. You're coming back for a special session. And I want you to do this when it comes to property taxes and another issue dealing with the border. So that's what he wanted. But the kicker in this was Governor Abbott actually spells out exactly what he wants the legislature to do. He doesn't give a broad a goal. He actually gives specific tasks. I want this and nothing else. And it had nothing to do with homestead exemptions. Well, Lieutenant Governor Patrick is just basically saying we're not doing any of that unless we get homestead exemption. So what does the House do within about a week? The House does exactly what the governor wants, gavels out, goes home. There's the Senate over there going, well, you wanted that. Well, we're going to do some sort of combination with that. And this is a bicameral legislature, so both something that needs to be passed by both chambers. So it doesn't matter what the Senate passed. The House is gone, and they're not coming back. Well, that first special session ended with nothing done. There was nothing done in that regard on any front. So Governor Abbott calls him back again. This time he wants to eliminate the maintenance and operations tax of local school boards, or at least he wants to look into it and wants to do more on compression. And there's Dan Patrick saying, look, we're not doing anything until we do something with homestead exemptions. Within about the first week or so, maybe leading into the second week of the special session, Governor Abbott publicly says, guys, I'll take anything. And because Abbott said, I'll take anything, this means that he, in a sense, flinched. He blinked in this proverbial political chess match between Patrick and Abbott. Abbott makes the move to say, I'll take anything at all. He kind of loses out here. And Patrick is seen as outmaneuvering him, which is essentially what he does. So because Patrick dug in his heels and he was not going to be moved on this issue that we must do something with homestead exemption, and he played a card and he doubled down on this, that the governor would not back away, that he would need that the $100,000 homestead exemption is something that the governor secretly wants, and he can't back away from something like that. So I'm going to keep pushing for it. So here we have this chess match between these two, and the fact that they were publicly going after each other, and you can look at it on Twitter and other social media outlets to find this. And they were talking about each other in the media, and I mean, even Lieutenant Governor Patrick said to get rid of M&O, maintenance and operation, is a pipe dream, because that would mean that we would have to raise the sales tax almost 20%. So when you think of it that way, he says there's no way that can happen. We can't get rid of this thing. So that was the fight. And it's so interesting when we think about how the top two were in a public squabble. Usually it's the lieutenant governor and the House Speaker. It's usually those two who are often going at each other's throats. And I made a post just a few weeks ago stating how Patrick has little to no respect for Dade Phelan. But in this regard, Patrick holds out, has a strategy in play against the governor, and wins out. Because Abbott said, I'll take anything at all, and he blinked, this forced a compromise between the House Speaker and the Lieutenant Governor on appraisal boards, on compression, and on homestead exemptions. So we got a mixed bag of all those things. Now, that's something that Abbott really wasn't thrilled about, because he wanted everything that he wanted. He wanted what, this sounds a little bit redundant, but he wanted what he wanted. He didn't get what he wanted. He got most of what he wanted. So the deal maker in all this should have been Governor Abbott. And Abbott, in his time as governor, has had little to no appetite to actually do any deal making. His whole background is a judge. He's not much of a roll up the sleeves kind of governor and let's sit down and let's hammer out this compromise like Rick Perry was or like George W. Bush was. He's not about that at all. What he is about is having no conversation. So you saw this in 2015, you saw this in 2017, and you especially saw it in 2023, to where lawmakers would be passing bills and the governor would give no inclination that he would, prior to his action, that he would veto. But that's exactly what he did. He would veto these bills and would give no kind of indication, no prior notification that don't pass that because I'm going to veto it. He just did. And lawmakers were not notified, so they're a little shocked about all this sort of thing. You look at the very conservative lawmaker from North Texas, Jeff Leach, in his bills. You look at what happened with Paul Bettencourt down in Austin, and it wasn't just Republicans who were being vetoed; it was also Democrats. Again, and this led to the ire of Dan Patrick, who said he's targeting vetoing, not policy. It's because he didn't get what he wanted, so therefore I'm going to veto a whole bunch of bills. And he vetoed 76 bills at the end of the regular session, which is a lot. So when you look at I often like to tell people that the legislature is a lot like middle school or junior high. It's pretty petty. And Governor Abbott came off not looking strong in this movement. He came off looking petty. He came off looking small and silly. And when he challenged Patrick, let me reverse that. When Patrick challenged him, Abbott didn't rise to the top and say, "Hey, everybody, let's just cooler heads prevail and let's really hammer out something here." He didn't do that. He tried to take him on, and Patrick was not going to back down from a fight. And Patrick ends up winning this. He outmaneuvers Abbott, and he comes at the end of both special sessions. He feels vindicated for what he did at the end of the regular session. He feels vindicated for what happened at the end of the special session. And he gets to walk away from the regular session and both special sessions saying, I did what I promised. I forced something to happen. I looked out for everybody. And that's what he gets to do. In short, the lieutenant governor comes off stronger than ever before. And if you would have told me that Dan Patrick is going to end this session stronger than he was before, my question would be how? Because the lieutenant governor is strong anyway. And as we just saw in about 6 to 7 months, he ended up becoming more stronger than the sessions started. This piece is brought to you by the Mediocre Movie Club. The Mediocre Movie Club describes itself as a group of idiots who gives mediocre, above average, kind of in the middle reviews on all types of movies and television shows. You are welcome to find them at mediocremovie.club. Again, their website is mediocremovie.club. You can find them on Facebook. You can like them on Facebook. You can follow them on Twitter. Find them soon on the social media outlet Threads. You can also find them on Instagram and follow all of their posts. You can comment on their posts. And you can find their information there. Thank you, everybody, for listening in on this supplemental audio. Be sure to share if you'd like, and I'll see you again in next week. Thank you.